Steve Young, he was on the Rich Eisen show. And when he was asked, because, obviously he knows the inner working of the 49ers very, very well, by Rich, what he thinks the real relationship is between Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan, here's what Steve Young had to say. He said anyone who's trying to frame it as all roses is probably exaggerating, basically.
It's an oddity, there's no question, and no one would have thought it. Not Jimmy, not Kyle or John Lynch, the general manager, thought that there was a chance that Jimmy would not find a home and of value for the 49ers and for Jimmy. It just didn't happen. And so they ended up back with each other. And now you saw last week there's this edge of resentment that's been built, or like naturally, right? You've been rejected and you don't want to take that in. So I'm slightly concerned about going forward with the relationship with Jimmy and with Kyle and John. Is just, can we, despite all the things that have happened, can we still keep a profitable relationship? It can be tense, just make sure that it's creatively tense, right? Not toxically tense. And I think that'll be a fine line throughout the year, depending on how things go, because there's certainly a lot of broken glass between everybody. And like any big-time, highly sought-after job in the world, you got to be able to have thick skin, and you got to be able to move beyond the rigor of the moment. So we hope that everyone at the 49ers can do that, especially around those three guys, because if they can't find a profitable way forward, then where are we? And then it gets really kind of tougher.
Again, Steve Young, Rich Eisen show. So I wonder if Steve Young has seen that lip-reading video, and if that didn't make him think more of this. And again, it brings me to the point, Ray, that Jimmy Garoppolo, no, he's not going to start off going rogue. At one point, made just a little, just because I don't care what that guy thinks about me anymore. I really don't. The way Kyle wants it is not as important to me at this particular time in my career is the best way that I think about going about it. And so I'm going to do what I need to do. And things certainly get more interesting as that happens, if that did happen, if that were to happen. But I think Steve is, he's pretty dialed in, to say the least. And he is he's a smart guy, not only about football, but interpersonal relationships around a football team. And if he's saying that there is an edge of resentment there, I'm pretty sure Steve Young knows that there's a little resentment there.
Well, when he was here, there was always an edge of resentment. It was Montana resented him. To a certain extent, he resented Montana. And Bill Walsh liked to play one against the other because it was a way to keep them both on edge.
Creative tension.
So he might be looking for that. I don't know how well connected he is with the 49ers anymore, because I don't know how much he talks to people there and how much they confide in him. Because for the most part, this is a pretty well buttoned down organization. So I wonder whether he's projecting or whether he actually knows something. Because if he actually knows something, I think we'd have heard it by now. I think he's probably answering a question, because this is why I like, when I hear an answer, I like to hear what the question is. Because he might have just been, sort of eased that way by Eisen, who knows how to ask a question. So I'd need to know more. But even if there is a resentment, let's humor this a little bit. He's not going to go rogue. He's not going to suddenly, you know what? I'm fed up with you. I'm going to do this my way. Because that's when you will see Brock Purdy. Because if Kyle Shanahan...
Unless it works, Ray.
Well, how are you going to get that to work if a team hasn't worked on it during the week? If
I'm not saying Jimmy's drawing the plays.
If there's nothing in the plan that says, throw that 28-yard out, and he decides to throw that 28-yard out, well, there are 9 guys who haven't trained on that all week. Can they block the 28-yard out?
I'm not saying going rogue to the point where he's running plays that they have not practiced.
But I don't know what you mean by that, because
audibling into this, audibling into that, taking the play that you sent into the huddle, spitting on it to run another play that we've practiced several times.
Well, but what plays have they practiced that are going to be radically different than the ones they've been running?
The other ones.
I think in the course of a week, you're pretty much running the stuff that he wants running a game. So
This
I
guy's
don't
got
think
6 years of internal knowledge.
he's got 6 years of internal knowledge, but a week-to-week practice, you're not going to try stuff that the coach doesn't want tried. So I'll just go back on this again without trying to pass myself off as an expert. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a well-programmed quarterback who does what the coach wants him to do, whether he likes it or not.
Again, though, but if there's a building resentment, if there is an actual level of hard feeling, bad feeling that bubbles to the surface, maybe things change. You got to allow enough of the unknown, Ray, to admit that things do change, and they change rather quickly in sports. And the little Lord Fauntleroy good soldier on a Monday might be the guy who's AWOL on a Thursday.
I'd have to see it to believe it. I just don't see Jimmy Garoppolo as that kind of guy.
Steve Young was asked about more on this resentment by Rich Eisen. Here's more from Steve.
He's 34-14, went to the Super Bowl, went to a couple of championship games, and now they're telling him, we don't want you. We don't want you, and we're going to let you go, and we've drafted somebody else. You're done. So then he has to take all that success in his mind and make sense of it. Like, why am I being released? Why am I being fired? And what you don't want to do naturally is say, well, it's because I'm not getting things done or I'm not doing my part. You take it as, well, they're idiots. And then people around you say that everyone's an idiot. And then pretty soon you listen to everyone, you don't take in the full measure of why you're being let go, why you're being fired as a part of what you've done. So you could learn and grow, and you build resentment and victimization. And so that goes on for 6 months through his injury, and everyone's telling him how loud, can't wait to get out of there, forget those guys, and look, have I heard those words said? No, but I'm just saying, if you think about the human nature of it, screw those guys, you'll be better off somewhere else, blah, blah. And you start talking and thinking about that for 6 months, and then you end up back in the same spot. And maybe if you don't have those conversations to make things more positive, you're ending up together, remarried, when you haven't really solved the original problem.
I think that there's a lot there. I mean, if this is all of the frustrations and all of the wanting more from your quarterback, if that becomes the ever-present feeling around Jimmy Garoppolo, I could see how that would start eroding things quickly. Again, here's a little bit more from Steve, who then even circled back to the fact that, as much as we keep on saying that he's the right quarterback for Kyle, he might not be the right quarterback for Kyle's system after all.
Kyle is an innovative, people are going to come open in his offense. It's a grinder's offense in a sense that it's a grinder's offense for preparation, and it's really an embodiment of the sophistication of what he's trying to do on the field. And Jimmy, by his own admission, is, I want to wing it. I want to just let it, I want to be like 2017. I just want to let it rip. And the great grinders on the data through the years are the guys that are at the top of the league. That's Tom Brady, that's Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. They grind through the data. And there's guys like Jameis Winston and, these guys that love to just rhythm, just let me rip, let me go. And there's highs and lows. And in the highs and lows, Kyle obviously didn't want to ride the highs and lows. And Jimmy wants to ride the highs. He wants to ride the highs. And then, how do we solve for the lows? And I think that's why the two of them have to find a profitable way forward so that they can find that place where, hey, Jimmy, I need you to do extra here. And, Coach, I need you to help me here. And those are the kind of conversations hopefully are happening right now.
And he's talking about profit. If this team keeps going broke in red zones, if this team is looking at its defense week after week after week saying, if not you, it doesn't happen. Man, I could just... As much as I think that this team is absolutely in contention right now to be a playoff team and things will get better with Jimmy, we also know that things are going to slip up. And if they continue to slip up, this equation, speaking of profit, right, this equation right here has less time to become profitable than it's had in the past. It's had. Like, I could see an awful lot of, well, I'm sick of you, you're sick of me now, and you got this other quarterback named Brock, and just go ahead then. I could see Kyle Shanahan eventually just saying, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to do anymore. He won't throw the pass that I say. That's the primary receiver. I ran him open, but because he's outside the numbers, Jimmy's not going to throw it to him. I can't do that anymore.
Well,
and I need to see Brock not throw that pass before I think he won't throw that pass either.
except that he had those opportunities last year with Lance in the first half of the season when things weren't going well and didn't go that way. If
Lance didn't even know how to
your
tie his
scenario
shoes.
happens, it means that Kyle Shanahan has sort of broken his programming and the season is lost. Because you can't play, that sort of, gee, I just want something different with a team that fancies itself a Super Bowl contender. That's too much turmoil for a team to handle. And
I think the default setting, though, can't be we fancy ourselves a Super Bowl contender. The default setting has to be we need to start processing this information in real time.
And I that might be your feeling, and I'm not arguing that you're wrong because I don't know. I'm just saying that we've seen what Kyle Shanahan has done for 5 years. I don't see him as a dramatically different coach now than he was then. And I think as long as that's the case, it's going to have to be something fairly catastrophic for him to go away from Garoppolo and to Purdy. And by catastrophic, I mean they're 3-8, not 3-5. And if they're 3-8, the season's done. He would have to be convinced that there's no getting back from that. And so I'm thinking you're talking well into the second half of the season. And it would have to be a series of awful performances. When I kind of feel like Denver's about as low as he can be, that offense can be. I don't know ways that it could be materially worse. And I suspect that
More turnovers.
More turnovers, more injuries.
Interceptions.
More injuries, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if they're still going to have 3 turnovers a game, sure. But, at that point, do you want the third quarterback? Because I don't know of any team that's ever made a run using 3 quarterbacks. I just think that Kyle Shanahan, for good or ill, is a more conservative thinker than that and a more conservative long-term planner than that. There may very well be a point where he just decides to abandon the whole Garoppolo run. But I think it's going to have to be post-catastrophe rather than pre-catastrophe.